folks come out. Thank you. Okay, good evening. I'd like to welcome everybody to the May 24th meeting of the St. Mary's County Planning Commission. Our meeting is being recorded for the public record. Any comments made by anyone present must be recorded as part of the record. Therefore, if you have anything to say, you must come up to one of the microphones provided, or when giving testimony online or through the telephone, please give us your name followed by your statement. Your comments cannot be recorded and placed in the record unless they are done in this fashion. You are to direct your statements, questions, and responses to the board only, and we'll direct them to the appropriate person for an answer. Please keep your comments to 3 minutes or less. And anyone testifying or asking questions during our public hearings will be required to take an oath. Thank you for your cooperation. Tonight, on our agenda, after the review and approval of 2 sets of minutes, we have a public hearing. It's for number 20-132-016 for the Chapticos Substation Concept Site Plan. After that, we will have any new review of anything, and followed by adjournment. At this time, I'll let the board members introduce themselves, starting Ms. Summers.
Kim Summers.
Patty Robrek.
Howard Thompson.
Merle Evans.
Joe Fazekas.
Also with us this evening, we have through the computer, we have Joe Van Kirk and we have B.J. Hall. Our alternate is also with us just in case, Mr. Joe St. Clair. Let's see. And from Land Use and Growth Management, we have the Director, Mr. Bill Hunt. Planner 4 is Brandy Glenn. Planner 3 is Courtney Jenkins. And our Administrative Coordinator is Kathy Garcia. Our video media producer this evening is Amy Carter. From the County Attorney's Office, our County Attorney, Mr. David Weiskopf, is here. And it says on here that Mr. Balkin is here, but I don't see him on my board, so I don't know whether they're here or not. From the applicant, we have 2 members from SMECO, Mr. Hugh Vole, I hope I pronounced that correctly, and Tommy Short. Their attorney is Mr. Lewis Jenkins, and the consultant from KWC is Mr. Kevin Anderson. Okay. We have 2 sets of minutes. We can do them both at the same time if you want. We have them from the May 10th and the May 17th hearings. Did everybody have a chance to review? Mm-hmm. Would anybody like to make a motion to do, you can do one or both?
I'll do them both. Oh. I'd like to make a motion to approve the Planning Commission meeting minutes of May 10th and May 17th.
I have a motion, to have a second?
I second.
Second from Ms. Summers, okay. Since we have members out there, we'll go down roll call. Mr. Evans, you're the A team tonight.
Okay. Aye.
Mr. Fazekas?
Aye.
Ms. Summers?
Aye.
Mr. Van Kirk?
Aye.
Ms. Robrek?
Aye.
Mr. Hall?
Well, I want to say aye, but I missed last week, so I can't really. So I'm not sure how we do this because I can acknowledge the first one, and do I just need to abstain from both?
You just abstain from both. They're pretty much well going to pass. Okay. Thank you, BJ.
Works. Abstain.
And I vote aye. Okay. Both minutes are done. Moving right along. As I say, we'll start our first case of the evening. Get that up here on this computer. For concept site plan number 20-132-00016 for the Chapticos Substation. The owner is Southern Maryland Electric Cooperative Incorporated. The agent is KCW Engineering, and their action requested this evening is a review of a concept site plan for an approximate 95,200 square foot SMECO substation. Okay, all persons that are testifying, and you folks, if you all are going to do any if you're going to have any testimony, public testimony time, well, if you'd stand, raise your right hand, and I'll swear everybody in. And all you folks out there in the computer world, if you would raise your right hands also so I can get you sworn in. Do you declare and affirm under the penalty of perjury that the testimony, responses, and statements you may give will be the whole truth and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Okay, thank you.
I do.
And if there's somebody else that wants to get up and speak and you didn't get sworn in, I can swear you in. Okay,
Okay.
let's go.
All right. Good evening, Chair and Planning Commission members. I'm going to share my screen with you. Okay. Is everyone able to see my presentation?
Yes.
Okay. Can someone
Yes.
on Zoom confirm they can see it as well? Okay, great.
Yes, we can see it.
Great, thank you. All right. Agenda item 1 is a concept site plan for 20-132-16 for Chaptico Substation. It is, they seek approval for an approximate 95,200 square foot SMECO substation. The site is located at 38285 Chaptico Road in Mechanicsville. The land use is rural preservation, and the zoning is rural preservation district. Use 97, major utility, is a power generating plant or power substation, water reservoir, water or wastewater treatment plant, and associated disposal ponds or similar facility of a public agency or public utility. It's a structure that may have a significant effect on surrounding uses and is regulated under this classification. The rural preservation districts are intended to foster agricultural, forestry, mineral resource extraction, and aquacultural uses and protect the land base necessary to support these activities. Low-density residential development in this type of district is permitted subject to performance standards that maintain the rural character of the district in recognition of the fact that a full range of public facilities is not provided or planned. The general intent of the district is to encourage farming without undue burden on the landowner. Per the comprehensive plan, rural preservation district is prime farmland, timberland, and mineral resource lands, agriculturally related industries, and limited non-farm cottage industries, and low-density non-farm residential developments characteristic of the county's rural character, which are to be preserved for a wide range of economic and aesthetic purposes. It acknowledges continued non-conforming commercial and residential activities on existing parcels throughout the district, but limits their expansion or creation. The public notice for the Planning Commission public hearing was published in the Southern Maryland News on May 7th and May 14th. The property has been posted in accordance with the CZO requirements, Section 21.3.3, and certified mail receipts have been received and have been entered into the record of this public hearing as Exhibit 1, and the agenda was posted on the county website on May 19th, 2021. The concept plan was reviewed at the TEC meeting that was held on November 25th, 2020. Per the ordinance, major utility use number 97 is a conditional use in the rural preservation district with the following general standards. One, that site plan approval shall be required, and that utility transmission facilities, except those regional or interstate facilities that must cross tidal waters, may be permitted only in the critical area IDA zone if the facility or activity has demonstrated to all appropriate local and state permitting agencies that there will be a net improvement in water quality discharged to the adjacent body of water. For all non-residential and multifamily residential projects that require major site plan approval, a concept site plan shall first be approved by the Planning Commission before the major site plan may be processed for approval by the planning director. This is a public hearing which enables all who wish to provide information to the Planning Commission. In order to approve the concept site plan, the Planning Commission shall make the findings that the proposed development is consistent with the comprehensive plan and applicable functional plans, may be served by adequate public facilities as required by Section 70.2.2, will promote the health, safety, and welfare of the general public, will adequately developed recreational and other community amenities are provided in accordance with the comprehensive plan and the comprehensive zoning ordinance, and is consistent with Chapter 62 design objectives. The conditional use approval hearing with the Board of Appeals was held on May 13th, 2021. An approval was granted per CUAP number 20-132-16. The information from that meeting will be added to the site plan once the order is finalized and signed. And this concludes staff's report and is entered into the record of this public hearing as Exhibit 2. Representing the applicant is Kevin Anderson with KCW Engineering Technologies and other staff. Are there any questions for me?
Do any of the board members have any questions of staff? Okay, hearing none. Then we'll go ahead and let the applicant,
And the applicant had a PowerPoint presentation as well, so I will pull that up for
Okay.
them.
who's doing the speaking for y'all this evening? Is that you, Mr.?
Good afternoon, good evening, Mr. Chairman. Louis Jenkins, I'm the attorney for Southern Maryland Electric. With me tonight are Tommy Short from SMECO. Tommy is the Environmental and Property Rights Director for SMECO. Hugh Vole is also an employee at SMECO. Mr. Vole is the Transmission and Substation Engineer and Manager. And also with us tonight is Kevin Anderson from KCW Engineering, who is the civil engineer for the project. Mr. Vole, this is his show, so we're going to let him go through his PowerPoint and answer any technical questions that the commission may have.
Okay.
Go ahead, Hugh.
Thank you, Louis. Good evening, members of the board. And like I said, thank you for your time to allow SMECO to present the Chapticos substation tonight. And I'm going to keep this brief. As we say, this is in regards to the proposed Chapticos substation right off of Chaptico Road, just by Philip Thomas Lane. Okay. And first thing we'll talk about is the reason why we're looking, why the substation is being proposed in that area is SMECO's planning department. We're continuously modeling our system to identify areas where there are increasing areas of load that need to be served, as well as to maintain reliable service to our customers. The Chaptico area has been identified where the existing substations in place that serve the area are at maximum capacity, and we're starting to lose the ability to serve the growing load in their area and to serve the load that is required. The new substation we have proposed not only will address increased load growth in the area, but also provide SMECO with more options to restore power to our customers in a more quickly and timely manner should an outage occur. And the reason why the Chapticos, this area is, we looked in this area, the current stations that are serving the area are, where I'm going to start to is our Milestown substation, which is in Milestown just past the 7th District Park, a substation up off of Oakville Road, and then a substation located over in down in off of Route 235 in Hollywood, Maryland. As you can tell, those are pretty remote areas. Those are pretty remote from the area we're looking at, and hence why we're trying to get a substation closer to the source to address the growth in the area and provide more reliable power. So what we're looking at, the proposed location is right off our existing transmission line right away on property that is owned by SMECO. We have the project proposed to be built over 2 years, and I do apologize, that should say 2021 and 2022. Our plan is, once we receive all our permits, is to start the clearing and site grading this summer in 2021, and then we predict once clearing is done, it's about a year-long construction. So we expect to be completed in fall of 2022. And that said, the reason why, not only we have the growing load in the area that the substation will help serve, and that also has the ability to help restore power in the area, because the existing stations are already at their max, and we don't have the ability to provide the power needed in this area. But two things I really want to focus on is the property is already owned by SMECO, and it is also right next to our existing transmission line. So, and when we build the station, there is no new right-of-way required in order for us to build the lines to energize the station so we can serve load in the area. And I want to give a little bit of background in exactly to what our substation does. Is what it takes. It takes the substation of the transmission voltage, and essentially it takes from a higher voltage and it steps it down to the low voltage, which is then used to serve all the residential and commercial customers. So the slide you're looking at right here is just a little bit of the aerial that was shown earlier in from the staff report. Right, you can see the yellow square there. That is the property owned by SMECO next to our right-of-way, right across from Phyllis Thomas Lane. That is where the site is going to be built. And then this is just a couple pictures up close. If you look at the next picture showing the actual right-of-way, this is standing on Chapter Road looking in. That's you can see that's the existing right-of-way where our transmission lines already are, and that there. I just wanted to point out we've had some questions in the past that we know with access, and we have recently replaced the gates and redone the wires to try to prevent people from accessing the right-of-way off Chapter Road. And then if you go to the last slide of the presentation. Next, that's just looking in. That is the actual proposed site where once the clearing where the site will be built.
And Mr. Gold, when you say it's next to the transmission line, you're not talking about your normal distribution line. How much voltage does your transmission line transmit?
The transmission line is to be built to serve the station. It's a 69,000 volt line, whereas the distribution lines next to the road are served at 13.2 kV.
And how wide is this right of way, this electrical transmission line?
Our existing transmission right of way is 150 feet wide.
And is SMECO agreeable to installing the appropriate buffer yard as required by the county code?
Yes. All as part of the plans and presented with the Board of Appeals, we are planning to go above and beyond to meet all buffer yard requirements and to provide extensive screening around the station.
And it looks like your site is completely wooded. Is it your intent to try to maintain as much of the tree canopy that exists as possible?
Outside of the area which needs to be cleared inside the fence shown on the display, which where all the energized electrical equipment will be, our plan is to, outside of that, maintain all the rest of the trees on site, and and they will be put in a permanent forest conservation.
And in terms of health and safety, does SMECO comply with all applicable electrical building codes in the construction of the substation?
There are two main codes which SMECO has to follow, and that would be OSHA, Occupational Safety and Health Administration, and the NESC, which is the National Electric Safety Code. Those are the two codes which are designed. We make sure we maintain all minimal clearances, both horizontally and vertically, from any neighboring structures or roadways. And we also provide in all the security and the perimeter fence to keep the public for the public safety, to keep them out from the equipment.
And once the substation is constructed, what do you anticipate the traffic impact to be by the substation?
Once construction is complete, our substation is actually remotely monitored from our central operations center, and outside of like an outage or emergencies, the typical traffic will be either a bucket or a pickup truck to do an inspection, a visual inspection for maintenance and make sure everything's in working order once a month or every 2 weeks. So minimal to no traffic.
Thank you. No further questions, Mr. Chairman.
Does the board have any questions of Mr. Vole at this time? Mr. Vole, how familiar are you with other substations in the county?
Very, very familiar with all the substations in St. Mary's County and throughout all of Smeco's service territory. We currently operate and maintain over 85 stations throughout Calvert, St. Mary's, Lower Prince George's, and Charles County.
Well, I guess what I'm asking is how familiar you are with, like, I'll say the substation that's on Hewitt Road in California. Do you know which one I'm talking about?
Yes, I'm referring. That's that's actually a 230 kV yard, right there off Buck Hewitt Road.
Yeah.
That substation, I said, that is actually a 230 kV. That is much larger and not the size of the station that we are proposing here at Chaptico.
Give me a ballpark figure. Is it the one you want to build in Chaptico? Is it half that size, a quarter of that size?
I would say it would be a quarter of that size.
Yeah, because that one's big, you know. But
Down at
but it's right there next to a neighborhoods and all that. But I go across there to deliver grandchildren, and I mean, it's a big substation. It's clean. It looks good and all that, and it's next to a lot of, I'll say, fairly expensive homes. But it's huge. But when you're saying that yours is only about a quarter that size, that helps.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, that is a higher voltage station. You know, it's actually at the 230 kV level, so that requires, you know, greater heights and more spacing. And I believe the Hewitt Road, that site is almost 10. It's over 10 plus acres, if not more, fenced in that area alone. Whereas, like down here, we're proposing 2.95 acres total.
Okay. And you're planning on, I hear, if I hear you all correctly, keeping up with all the trees that are, except for the area that's, I'll say, right in the middle. But are you going to be doing, I'll say, any type of evergreen type plantings around that to kind of hide the fence, even though it's, I'll say the only people that are probably going to be impacted, besides the ones that are on the highway, would be, I think the name is Haskell Campbell. That let me see, I can look it up a little bit quicker here. Yeah, Mr. Haskell Campbell. They have a 1 acre, and that's the closest part of your buffer is on their property, and that's 35 feet. But down in the corner, I noticed that their existing building is up more towards the road. I just always like to look out for the neighbors. So y'all are going to take care of the plantings that are from the road down to that corner where it says 35 foot. I'm looking at your concept site plan, page 12 is the drawing I have up.
Yeah, we're going to, if you're looking at the concept site plan, anything, we're going to maintain all the trees as much as possible. And we've also in the landscaping on that, I'm going to refer to as the east side of the station, which is the Haskell Campbell, parcel 90. Then we have the 61 Agnes Thomas. We do have proposed additional plantings and screenings along that side of the station as well.
That's good to hear. Make sure if this is to go through, the important thing is to take care of your neighbors so that they're protected and screened. Is there much sound that comes off of this? That
No,
comes? I know there's a small one in Hollywood. I know in the old days it used to hum, but after y'all replaced everything, the hum went away, and I'm sure the neighbors were happier. Is there much sound that comes off of these projects?
No, when you're standing when you're standing at the fence line at our new substations with the new transformers, any audible noise is minimal to none at all.
Okay.
It's well below the 55 dB, well below the 55 decibel threshold.
Okay. Mr. Fazekas?
Mr. Vole, going back to the Great Mills substation that Mr. Thompson was asking about, the reason we're building the substation, or you're proposing this, is that there's added demand that the system needs to take to address, so that you can supply the power safely and such. I guess my question is, in the event, and I would think it's unlikely, but that's not the case here. In the event that the power needs of this area, double, let's just say, would the possibility of this substation, if approved, ever grow to the size of the one we see there at Great Mills? Or is that something where you would have to cite a different location to meet the needs?
If it ever gets to that point where I would say the substation down there off of the Hewitt Road, that is actually a 230 kV substation. We would actually look at a different area. There's not a big enough footprint to put the size substation you're looking for in that area. And I would like also to follow up into more detail with the proposed substation that we do have there at Chaptico now. It is set up to address, if you say the low growth doubles, it is set up so we have the ability to add a second transformer in the future to serve load in that area without having to build another site.
Thank you very much.
Any other questions from board members? Okay, hearing none. We'll go ahead and open it up to public testimony. If there's anybody that would like to come up and make a comment at this time, you can come up to the microphone here in the center, give us your name and address, and give us your comment. Good evening, ma'am. Okay, could you give us your name and address, please?
Dorothy Frederick.
And your address, please?
3608 Erie Drive. It's spelled E-Y-R-E. Erie Drive. Oklahoma.
Okay.
20772.
Okay, thank you. Could you speak and speak a little bit louder toward the microphone? We want to make sure that you're on record. So,
Right. Can you hear me better?
yes, ma'am.
The question I had is, wanted to know the SMECO would be constant.
Mr. Chairman, I apologize for stepping in. We cannot hear her on the computer.
Okay.
Okay.
Can't hear her because she's speaking too softly, or can't hear her at all. Hold on, Amy's coming out to check the microphone.
Okay.
I think she's speaking too softly.
Speaking this.
Yes, ma'am. Pull that little microphone up. It's a lot better than that other thing.
Okay.
More comfortable too for you.
All right. What I wanted to know if SMECO is constantly monitoring the EMF. Okay, that's one of my questions.
Okay. Did y'all hear that?
That's something that's constantly being monitored. I know they say they're going to be monitoring it, so therefore the traffic will be at a minimum. And, as far as other things going on, is that something else that they would be monitoring also?
Okay, did y'all hear that?
This is Hugh Vole from SMECO. I can speak to that. I heard the question in regards to the concerns of EMF generated by the electric power lines and substations. And is this Miss Frederick, correct?
Yes, This is something we spoke about at the 13th.
Yes. Yes, it's a Board of Appeals meeting. That is correct. Like I said, we know exactly with your property, and yes, SMECO, like I said, the station is always being remotely monitored 24/7. You know, to make sure the power is on and there's no outages going on. And in regards to the EMF, he said that is a function that is it's. Every type of electrical appliance or power line, you know, especially if it's a generator, you know, creates an electromagnetic field. And the level of the EMF that you experience, you know, that is directly related as a function of how close you are to the source. So the farther away you are from the source, the less the EMF reading is going to be. And what SMECO has proposed and what we can do, and like I said, we will call you, we have your contact information, we'll be in touch, is we have employees on staff with the equipment can come out and then take the measurements. And like I said, this is something that we offer free of charge for our customers, because we don't think it's fair for you to have to pay for a third party to do a reading because of a project we're doing. So we can come out and take readings at the site, at your property. I will refer on the other side of the station, which is across from where our existing transmission lines are. We will gladly come out, take a reading prior to substation construction starting, during, and after. And we can also take readings around your house as well to show you the EMF levels at your house compared to the substation as well.
Okay, and I think you made that clear. But what I was asking, is this something that you monitor remotely? Like, you're not out there testing, but that you can monitor if the range if it
EMF,
goes up. Yes.
It's steady because of the source, because as long as the power is on, it continues being generated. So once you get that first reading, that's the level. And in the future, we can always do follow-up readings on site as well to show that the EMF level has not increased.
Okay, so I think from what I'm understanding is that you will only know from the readings. It's not something that you'll be back in your office or wherever you do the monitoring. This is not something that you would see in case it fluctuated. You would never see that. You would only know what it is at the time of the reading. Is that what I'm understanding?
Yes, because you want to go out because you need to have. Yeah, you want to be out with the equipment. You want to be right there, and you have to adjust it to get an accurate reading at the time. And then you go out and you want to do it right there at the source.
Okay, so
we don't have the ability to transmit that data back.
Okay, so sound like it's not being monitored. Okay. Oh, kind of got the little. Do you find out that there's time that it does fluctuate? But if you're not monitoring, you wouldn't know that anyhow. You would only know what it is when you come out to test it. So that's all right. And when you get ready to test it, then you contact the residents. Is that something they can schedule with you at that time?
Yes, we will. Yeah, we will. We reach out and contact any consumer that has concerns directly, and can schedule and we'll schedule times directly with the consumer based upon their availability.
I think that's all. I think you answered my question.
Okay, hold on one second, Ms. Frederick. Is there any board members who have any questions of Ms. Frederick?
No, Ms. Frederick, no.
I know what you get ready to ask, so
Go ahead.
you go ahead.
No.
We think along the same lines. Thank you, Ms. Frederick. We're just going to ask questions just about what you talked about, though, so stand by.
This is Mr. Vogel. Is there a reason that EMF would fluctuate? Can you give me some idea of why EMF might fluctuate? Maybe that would help. Or is there a reason that it would fluctuate?
Maybe under an instantaneous fault, but other than that, the EMF, as long as the source is generating and continuously running, the EMF will not fluctuate.
So it's consistent with the generation of the power that's moving through that system?
Correct.
Okay.
And then because it's EMF, it stands for electromagnetic frequency.
Right.
And all that frequency is generated by any type of motor or condenser, like the motor on your outdoor HVAC unit, the
Right.
motor on your microwave. So it generates that source, and then the farther away you are, the less the EMF.
Right, but you guys do monitor with the power across that grid. You guys monitor that all the time, right? So if there was a fluctuation, you would know.
Frequency, we would know if there's a fluctuation, but it's not going to directly affect or cause the EMF to go up or down.
Up or down?
It goes
Okay.
back to it's the source, how close you are to whether it's the motor or the power lines, and
Okay.
the farther away you are, the less exposure to the EMF itself.
Okay.
Mr. Voll, suppose, let's say this goes through, you get this built, and you hear that next week is going to be 5 straight days of 98 degrees. So everybody is going to be running their air conditioner. Everybody's going to be cooking in the microwave because they're not going to be wanting to run the oven in the house and all that type of thing. Would that be the time that y'all would go out and check that EMF to see if there's any, I'll say, higher or lower standard or any fluctuation? And on the same line in the middle of the winter, when it's going to be at its coldest days, where everybody's going to be in the house with either furnace or electric heat or electric heaters and that type of thing. Same I'll say application, but just different weather. Would those be times that y'all would check that in your first years of this station being up? Would that be a good suggestion for y'all to do?
If that's when the consumers want us to come out and do the reading, we can gladly come out and do the reading during the middle of the summer, what I'm referring to is the middle of the winter of what is our highest peak demand when the most electricity is being consumed, and we can also do it in the middle of the fall or spring, when nobody has the heat or AC on and demand is lower on our system as well. That is the time of the year we can easily accommodate the consumer's request.
Okay.
In that regard.
And
is
Mr.
there-
Chairman, Louis Jenkins, you don't have the benefit of having the order yet from the Board of Appeals, but one of the conditions of the Board of Appeals approval of the conditional use was that SMECO meet with Ms. Frederick as well as the other adjacent property owners and perform an EMF read-in prior to construction, during construction, and then after construction to give the neighbors the assurances that there's no increase in EMF. And
So that was a
now's an
condition.
opportune time to point out that SMECO is owned by our members, and so SMECO is usually very receptive and responsive to members' requests. So if at any time Mrs. Frederick would like SMECO to come out and take a read-in, I'm sure SMECO would be more than willing to do that.
Yes, that was supposed
that
to
is
be
correct.
added, but
But that was Mr. Jenkins, you say that was a condition with the Board of Appeals, that be done in that?
Yes, sir. That was correct. That was part of the order. That was part of the motion that was approved by the Board of Appeals back on May the 13th.
Okay, that's good.
I have a question.
Mr. Chairman, I got a couple questions for Mr. Vole.
So does me.
Okay, hold on. Ms. Summers had just started before you, and then we'll kick in. Hold on. Go ahead.
Mr. Vole, I have a question. Would it be reasonable to assume that increasing this size and capacity of this substation would increase EMF?
If we were to go to a higher voltage than what we have proposed, then yes, the EMF would be up. But we're not proposing that here.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, and then who else had a question?
Joe.
Mr. Van Kirk?
Chairman Joe Van Kirk here.
Go ahead, sir.
Okay, quick two-part question for Mr. Vole, and it's in reference to the EMFs. First part is, if for some reason they were a tad bit high, and I don't know the levels or anything about EMFs, but is there some way you can do external shielding, an additional fence, some kind of barricade? I'm not sure what stops them, but is that a possibility? If that was, and the second part of that question is, at your other substations, the 85 plus substations, have you had any problem with EMS and had to actually go out and add any type of shielding for them?
Thank you for the question. And to answer the first part of the question, should for some reason the readings come back higher than what's acceptable, there are options out there, to provide like different shielding and to reduce the frequency. But to date, at all the other stations that SMECO has, we have yet to come across where we've had an increase in the EMF due to our substations in that site. Between the substations and the high voltage power lines, we've yet to come across where we've ever caused it to go extremely high.
Okay, I certainly appreciate that. And I mostly asked that question just so Ms. Frederick may have a level of comfort to know that out of all the other substations, there's been no problems with the levels of EMS, and I appreciate your answer. And that's all I have.
Thank you very much, sir.
Okay. Ms. Roebuck?
Okay. Mr. Vogel, I have one question for you. And is there not a safety protocol that SMECO conducts on all of their sites to determine if there's any variance in the levels of the EMF? You're saying it's up, from what I'm understanding you saying, is that it's going to be up to the consumer, Mrs. Frederick, for instance, to make that call for you to come out and conduct that analysis of the EMF. I would think that would be part of your safety program. Question mark.
It is. And there's actually several factors we deal into and how we lay out and design the sub. And without getting into too much technical detail, it actually comes in with how we roll the conductors and how we have the different phases coming into the station. Because if you set it up right, you can actually, if you do the phasing right, the alternate phases will actually cancel the EMF out. And that's one of the ways we can do to help. We incorporate that into all our designs by the way we bring the wires in to help so they cancel out and minimize any EMF effect whatsoever. So yeah, there are several design aspects that SMECO does for all substations and transmission line designs to minimize that effect to make sure it doesn't happen.
But what about the monitoring, sir? I mean, we've talked about the
monitoring.
Yeah, I mean, is that solely dependent on a consumer making a call and requesting that be done? Or is it part of your protocol to come out there maybe once a month?
The SMECO, it's when the customer calls in and has questions and concerns about it. That's what we will come out and take the readings for it.
So that's not something that y'all do, I'll say periodically in the course of a year. I know that they come out and check all substations for whatever, just to give it visual looks, but you don't have on a schedule, I'll say anything that takes readings for EMF on I'll say a regular basis, quarterly basis, biannual.
Throughout the other numerous stations throughout our service territory, it's never been a concern or an issue that SMECO has created. But we also know that there's a lot of questions and concerns from the public out there. That's why we have the service available, so we can go out and take the readings to let our consumers know that we're not doing anything to expose them to any harms from the EMF.
Okay. Well, we might suggest a little something different.
It doesn't sound so neighborly.
Yep.
Mm-hmm. Because the customer might not know what to even look for to think it's time to check the EMF, whereas SMECO should know that this is something that's important enough to monitor? Because I know you always say that you
Well, ma'am,
try to be.
I would like.
Go ahead.
I would like to add, we do understand that it is very important to our customers. That's why it's a service we offer to everybody free of charge.
I got a question. What's required with this monitoring? I mean, being that it doesn't happen often, I mean, what goes into one of the readings? How much work is required?
It's a SMECO personnel and the handheld equipment, the Geiger mounter, and it's them just walking out there with the device that reads the EMF, then walking around and taking the readings next to it, next to different locations and certain equipment. So it can be pretty time consuming if depending on if we start walking around and checking every piece of equipment in somebody's house compared to standing at their property line next to our substation.
Can you define pretty time consuming, please?
In regards to how it's just with the customer, if it's a big house, going up to, you have to walk up and you put it next to each piece of equipment, whether it's the outdoor unit, the microwave. It all depends on where exactly they ask SMECO to take the EMF readings at.
Are we talking 2 hours? We're talking about 15 minutes? We're talking about, I'm just trying to get a better understanding of how long it would take.
Typically, when we do the site visit for the EMF readings, it's anywhere from 30 minutes to an hour.
Roger that. And there's no way to do this remotely?
Because it's like I said, it's a function of distance. So you could put it at one. You could set up a monitor at one spot, but then you want to walk around and check it compared to other areas to get a true reading of the EMF in the entire site, not just one spot.
Right. But could it be something that are there remote monitors available?
Not that I'm aware of at this time, sir.
Okay.
Okay. Well, I know you did. Oh, sorry.
Go ahead, Mr. President.
I know you did say that you sent someone out. Is it every 2 weeks or at least a month?
Those are our field personnel. They do not have the EMF equipment. We only have a couple of them. They're there just to inspect the equipment in the station to make sure everything is operating properly.
Mm-hmm. And since we're talking about that, though, is it that they don't know how to operate it, or when you say they don't have it because it's not given to them, or they don't know how to operate it, or, I'm not quite understanding.
It's not part of it's special equipment, and we don't have all the SMECO linemen who are right there are not trained, or not everybody in SMECO is trained, because it is specialized equipment. Mm-hmm. That's the reason why when we send somebody out there, we want to make sure that they're properly trained, so they're taking the right readings and passing on the correct information to the public.
Well, you're a big enough company. I'm sure you can work that out. I mean, if training is the problem. But I'm not the one.
Like I said, that's what we can gladly set up a time and meet you at your house and the property on site to take your readings and discuss in detail further what SMECO can do to help ease your concerns.
Mm-hmm. Well, I guess the board would probably have to enforce some things that, I can say certain things, but I think the board would have to enforce some of the things that SMECO should do, since they're the ones that's going to give you the permits and all of those things.
Okay.
Okay, I think I'm
Thank you, Ms. Frederick.
Thank you, Mrs. Frederick.
finished. Okay,
We'll
thank
look out
you.
for you.
And I know they didn't say anything about the minutes, and that's probably why you didn't know that it was added in that they would give the readings before, during, and after. But when you was reading, I didn't hear they say about the minutes from the 13th, so, but I guess it's
We appreciate-
added somewhere.
We appreciate that. They might even be doing it more.
Yeah, okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Somebody else like to come up? Either spot's good, just as long as we can hear you. What, would you tilt that microphone up? Oh, that mic's not working. Could you come up here where Mr. Frederick was? Please give us your name and address, please.
Sure. My name is James Young. My address is 808 Ciro Estates Drive, and that's Fort Washington, Maryland, zip code's 20744. Okay, I have a couple of questions. One is for the county. I heard about the Rural Preservation District being proposed for this, and I just wanted to find out if there is any effect on adjoining properties as a result of that.
What kind of effect were you talking about, sir? I mean,
I don't know. I mean, are you kind of locked into whatever they're doing as a result of your property being
I think
adjoined to them?
I'm not going to speak for
Or
the...
any effect at all? I mean,
are you talking cost or financial costs on your property?
No.
Health
I'm
or-
talking about from zoning issues and zoning. I mean, because that's what I thought we were talking
I'm
about.
going to let the county speak for you, but
Sure.
this is allowed in that zoning district. I'm not. Mhm.
The EMF ratings prior to construction, during construction, and then post-construction. And then, obviously, whenever a citizen would reach out and request to have additional readings. So that was part of that approval. So that kind of satisfied allowing it for the zoning.
Okay, my property is directly adjoining the property. So really, I'm just trying to find out, does the fact that it's being a rural preservation district have any issues on my property from a zoning perspective?
No, not that I'm aware of, sir.
Okay, that's my first question. And the next one, I wanted to be sure, I think it was Mr. Jenkins that mentioned that Ms. Frederick was on the record for the EMF testing, and I wanted to ensure that I'm on the record as well for the EMF testing.
Yes.
This is Hugh Mecca. I'll speak to that. Yes, sir, Mr. We have you on record in regards to setting up and scheduling the EMF testing as well from the Board of Appeals back on May 13th.
Thank you very much. Okay, and the last question that I have is, and correct me if I'm wrong here. If in fact the substation is being monitored for EMF frequencies, then I'm assuming that the adjacent properties EMF frequency can't be any higher than the substation. Would that be correct, or would that be incorrect?
That is correct, sir. And we have shown throughout our service territory that building a SMECO substation does not affect or increase the EMF level on the adjacent properties.
Okay, so that being said, is it that big a deal to just have the substation monitor itself? And then that way, everybody on the periphery, we don't have to worry, because if in fact, I mean, it's just like having a fire alarm. I don't wait till there's a fire to worry about that. I mean, where's the alarm? I mean, what I'm hearing is that unless we call you, we have no way of knowing that the EMF levels have increased.
That's why when we come out and test it, but it's about the technology and all stuff to set those up and then to be able to monitor and bring that data back to SMECO is what was preventing it. Whereas we also believe, back to what several of my many previous statements, we like to do it at the house to show the effects of EMF of the substation versus what the effects of the EMF are, say, from the condenser or the motor unit running on your outdoor HVAC unit or next to your microwave. So that's where at one point, if we monitor the SMECO substation 24/7, are the customers, are you going to want to monitor all the potential sources for EMF at the individual landowners as well too?
Well, no, I'm just saying if we can feel comfortable that the EMF isn't being put off by the substation, then whatever EMF's in our home is self-created. That's kind of what I'm, the other question that I have is, you mentioned that people come out a couple of times a month to the substation. At that time, do they take EMF readings at the substation?
Again, I'll go back to my previous statement. The linemen and the personnel that go out, they're there to inspect and check on the equipment. They're not there to check or take the EMF readings because they don't have the equipment and they're not trained. They're not trained in that as well.
So
that would be quite. Go ahead.
It gives me the feeling that you guys are more reactive than proactive.
I would actually tend to say we are more proactive than reactive. Instead of just waiting till after the substation is built, say that's why we have no concerns with meeting with the customers before, during, and after, and when they would like readings to show exactly what the effects are at their site.
Okay, but there's no policing that goes on.
And again,
there's no policing that goes on independent of the owner's involvement.
Well, when the more readings we get, and we thoroughly demonstrate that there is no effect from the EMF, then SMECO is comfortable saying we haven't caused any effects. And as stated back in the Board of Appeals meeting, if for some reason something does happen, there is shielding and alternate methods that SMECO can implement to reduce the EMF effects. But as said before, in the multiple stations and lines we have throughout, we've never had any of this occur.
Okay, and is this the industry standard?
Yeah, everything we do in regards to it's all standardized readings, and it's an industry. There's all type of standards that SMECO follows in regards to the readings we take.
Okay. All right. Thank you very much.
Okay, hold on one second, Mr. Young. So, any of the board members have any questions, Mr. Young?
Not for Mr. Young, but for the county, just to clarify Mr. Young's question. So the fact that this property was conditionally rezoned does not change the zoning of the adjacent properties?
Correct.
Correct.
And it does not limit my ability to do what I want to do with my property, correct?
With the current zoning, correct?
Okay.
Correct.
All right.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Any other question? Thank you, Mr. Young. Is there anybody else?
Chairman Thompson, I had a quick question for Mr. Vole as just a follow-up from Mr. Young's questions.
Okay.
Go ahead, sir.
Once you build the substation, you don't have the same amount of power the entire time there. I'm not going to say it won't fluctuate with high demand or low demand, but when you take a reading at your site, at your fence line, or wherever you do the reading, if you check it at the max, you can't ever exceed that unless you expand that substation, correct?
That is correct.
So what you have, I guess what I'm trying to understand is, because I've had a couple of the public ask you questions about the EMF and continuous testing and remote testing, and I'm just trying to understand that if you say the EMFs are 2, and I'm not even sure of levels, but if you say they're 2 at our max output, then that's the most they can be.
Correct. It's a max demand that our substation is designed for. You know, the EMF can never get any higher than that.
So I'm assuming that there is a standard for EMF, since you guys are in the electrical business, and I'm sure you've built substations of this size. So what you're building there, you probably already know that at your fence line, it's going to be whatever the number is. And I'm going to assume, because you're governed by OSHA and National Electric Code, that that's a safe level.
That is correct.
Okay, I just wanted to confirm, and maybe that hopefully answered a little bit of the questions from Ms. Frederick and Mr. Young. Thank you very much.
Okay, is there any other questions from the board? Okay, we'll go ahead and close public testimony.
I was going to check with Kathy just to make sure nobody
Oh,
had
I'm
called
sorry.
in real quick.
I forgot about the telephones.
Thank you for calling the Planning Commission. This is Kathy Garcia. We have no public comment.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'll have to say, I'm glad you folks came in here tonight, because we're so used to doing it on the telephone that when we have public testimony live, it makes a big difference. You get a better feel, and a lot of times you get more questions asked than answered in that evening. I'm glad things are getting back to normal. It helps. Okay, I'll go ahead and close public testimony. Hear any rebuttal from the applicant. Do y'all have anything y'all need to add after hearing those questions?
No. Well, just one brief question, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Vole, in terms of the monitoring of the substations, what information does SMECO do? Any type of remote monitoring of its substations?
Yeah, the remote monitoring that SMECO does of the substations it's to make sure the power is on, and we have all the proper voltages are there, and you know that the power is not out, to make sure that it's pretty much to make sure everything is functioning as properly, so the power stays on and is reliable.
And that's monitored 24/7, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week.
That is correct.
In the event that any of those readings were abnormal, SMECO has procedures to have a crew go out and inspect the substation promptly.
Yes, we have trucks, service trucks on the road 24/7, and in the case of an event at the station, they're dispatched, and we usually have a truck in there. Our goal is an hour or less.
No further questions, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, we're going to close, go ahead and close testimony and open it up to the board for deliberations. We got a lot of good information from the neighbors that are close by, their concerns. And we heard what SMECO does, I'll say, on their regular basis. It's in my opinion, just this board member's opinion, that maybe, I know they're going to do it before, during, and after the building of this, but maybe if something can be done on a quarterly fashion for a couple of years, just to keep the neighbors both mind at ease, but maybe that's something that SMECO, they're one of the most, I'll say, safety-minded companies out there. They run classes. They're linemen. I mean, I don't know. It's got to be like if you want to run on an ambulance to be a fireman, to be a SMECO lineman, you got to have some sort of a toughness in you to go out there in that weather and to take care of that. But along the other lines too, on their day-to-day work. I know they train. They train a lot. I know a lot of guys that work for SMECO. So I'm sure that's something that if they pick up from us tonight, from this board, that's something, especially just on this site, which we're making the decision on tonight, but they might want to go out and start checking, some of these other ones where there's homes that are close by. I mean, these neighbors have a concern. They have a right to be concerned. I mean, it's something new in the neighborhood. And, even like the one I was asking about in the park, which is like they were even saying, it's 4 times as large as this. If I was living in one of those nice $500,000 homes, I'd want them to come out every now and then to check that, just to make sure. So maybe in the course of our deliberations and when it comes time to make a motion, if this was to move forward, that might be something that could be considered, to do things for, on a few more times for a couple of years to make sure this thing is, and that the neighbors are notified when they do these readings. I know they're going to be anyway because they're going to be in their yards, but sometimes something on paper is nice to have too. Is anybody else that has anything they want?
Mr. Chairman, Hubel.
Excuse me?
Mr. Vols wanting to speak.
We're actually doing.
Mr. Chairman, this is Hubel. Sorry, go ahead.
Go ahead. We're in deliberations. I mean, I'd given you all the shots, but if you're answering something that I just brought up, go ahead and give it a whirl.
I was going to ask after deliberations. I was going to offer comments. That was just a point for clarification.
Well, after we do all of ours, we will explain to you any conditions or that comes with a motion this evening.
Thank you, sir.
Okay, so I would like to comment along the same lines as Mr. Thompson. I sort of feel as if it would appear as if the onus is on the consumer to reach out and make the contact with their concerns. And obviously, this is something that's been through the Board of Appeals, and you've all talked about someone coming out before, during, and after. But I think the part of this that I'm concerned about is, do Mr. Frederick or Mrs. Frederick and Mr. Young know who they're supposed to contact? Do they know how they're going to be informed of the findings of the EMF readings? It just seems to me as if some things need to be spelled out a little bit more clearly. And Mr. Thompson, when you were saying about something on paper, I think that's critical for the peace of mind for the people who have these concerns and express them here this evening. So it would just seem to me as if it would be SMECO's responsibility to say, here's when we're coming, here's how we're going to let you know. And again, as Mr. Thompson said, coming back maybe several months later and doing the same thing. I just think it's working in good faith with your neighbors, and it would certainly help with their peace of mind.
I would like to add to Ms. Summers and Mr. Thompson's comments. We have it great down here with SMECO. I've said many times before, I'm not from the region. We have for-profit companies where I'm originally from, and the rates are great. The service we get, the fact that I can pull up on my app on my phone when an outing is happening, where it's taking place, whether or not a team is out, addressing the issue, and anticipated time till the power's going to be back on. I mean, that is just over and above what we had in the big city. So for a nice southern rural county like we have, I say kudos to SMECO, but I would add about the EMF concerns. We have 2 citizens who are concerned. They're a small portion. That they probably represent a lot of other people in the community who have similar concerns, who either couldn't make it tonight, didn't know, or just couldn't afford the time to come out. I understand that the equipment they use is specialized, and you have training to use this EMF equipment. We've gotten rebates on our bills from SMECO in the past. Maybe something SMECO could look into. I wouldn't make this a condition, but just saying, look into this moving forward. Maybe for the system, we could afford one person who's trained on this equipment and whose sole job it is to go out to each of these substations in the territory, round robin, and test them. And that way, that stuff would be available on the website, and, I could look at that and say, okay, well, I'm near the Hollywood substation, whatever, and, oh, okay, they were last here 9 months ago, and everything was baseline, and, oh, that feels good. I don't have to worry about that. I don't have to call them, because I think the response to concerns could actually cost more and be more effort and more costly, and maybe less confidence to the customers than simply saying, hey, we have this plan, this policy in place for people who are concerned about EMFs, at least explore the possibility. Is that feasible financially, and what steps would need to take place for the future, so that, when other growth happens and other substations have to be coming through, boards like this, maybe there's less community resistance, and can point to, we have this very, proactive program. So I think that's the only thing I would actually add to the conversation today.
Mr. Evans?
Yeah, and I would agree. I think that the EMF testing is reasonable for SMECO to consider. I would not be comfortable with making it a condition beyond what the Board of Appeals did the other evening, which I think is reasonable, before, during, and after. And a recommendation to Southern Maryland Electric, when technology is available, to move to use that technology. I've lived here my whole life, and you're right, we are really fortunate to have Southern Maryland Electric here. I've never known them not to do what's in the best interest of the members of SMECO. Personally, I've never picked up the phone without them addressing my issues, and going above and beyond what you might imagine that any other, might do. So again, I'm fine with the conditions that the appeals board put on, but would make just a recommendation to SMECO that they consider when technology is available. And again, if you chose to, put in place something in a schedule that you guys would, or SMECO would do, but I think that's left to SMECO to do that. And if SMECO believes it's the right thing to do for their customers, I think that they will. Again, I don't believe that they have the ability to monitor the EMF remotely currently, is what I understood. So again, as just a recommendation to SMECO, I think that's reasonable. That's all I have. Thanks.
John? Everything you want to say?
I just want to add to what each one of you have said in a statement that refers back to the safety of our residents. I think that it's why we're here, each one of us, to ensure that the citizens of St. Mary's County, whatever we do from a planning perspective, are safe. So in that regard, I don't understand why we can't have an automatic EMF status report, or generated every quarter, or I don't know what the minimum or maximum would be, but I think why put the onus, like you said, on Mrs. Frederick or any other resident? It should be something that's automatic because it's relative to the safety of these people. And that's very concerning to me.
And not being an expert in the EMF technologies, but like other detectors out there, I don't think that I believe, I'm not speaking for them, but I would assume that the technology is not just there yet, that you could have little remote sensors throughout the entire property that would be reporting directly back. In the future, that might be the case. We're seeing, smart refrigerators and toasters now. So at what point are we going to have detectors that would actually do the same kind of thing and report back? So maybe right now the technology is not there and you have to send somebody out, and there's the labor involved in that. But perhaps in the future, who knows what's going to be available. So I definitely would hope that they would explore that. I think they would, because they've been good neighbors and a good utility to us. But even if there's nothing automatic, if they just had it in the system where, like I said, round robin, if they have 40 substations, that's one person's sole job. And you say, hey, I'm Bob, and I'm the guy who does this,
SMECO is not a company that's going to do anything that's unsafe for the community. It just isn't going to do that. They have been very proactive, I think, over the years. Where we are, we reached out, the service was, spotty sometimes. They replaced everything on the road was replaced. And guess what? I didn't get a bill for that. I mean, I got my regular bill, but all that maintenance comes along with me being a member of this cooperative. And again, this substation is no different than any of the others. It's to provide a consistent power source for folks in that area. And perhaps it's not as consistent as it once was. I mean, they went through the expense, an enormous expense, of creating a loop so that if your power was out, power could come from a different direction, and it was out only for a very short time. We are extremely fortunate to have a utility that is as diligent as Southern Maryland Electric. As I say, I don't want to put the onus on them for technology that I don't think exists. And again, I think making that recommendation to Southern Maryland Electric, I think this body, the people that testified tonight, I think they listened to that. I think the success of the cooperative is that they do listen to their consumers, and so putting the onus of something that I'm not sure that technology exists, I don't agree with that, and I do agree that the conditions that were put on were reasonable. I also believe that if consumers are concerned about EMF. And I understand that putting the onus on consumers may not be popular in all things, but I do believe if that is a concern of yours, pick up the phone, just call, and you'll be pleasantly surprised with the professionalism that's shown when these folks come out. I don't know what the EMF is, but again, SMECO is not going to build something that's going to be dangerous to adjacent property owners. So,
Mr. Evans, I'm a bit confused because it was my understanding from what I heard that they do have people that come out that are trained and they have the equipment that monitors the EMF levels.
They do.
So when you say their technology is not there, he stated that they do in fact go out there with.
Yeah, I'm talking about remote technology, which is what Mr. Fasico was
I wasn't talking about remote. I was just.
Well, I understand, but I guess as my business background is when I look at 85 substations, 4 times a year, quick arithmetic, I don't know how many people they need to do that. And if we make that recommendation and they can build that into their budget, then that is more meaningful than for us to put a condition on them that they're not prepared to take care of. I mean, they don't have they don't have the units, they don't have the people. So I guess my point is, if we can make this, if this is a recommendation to SMECO, to look at this and actually do the monitoring you're talking about, then that is something that they could take in, consideration. They can look at the cost, they can run in and put it into their budget, and then they can move forward. And then down the line, if it does become possible to monitor it, remotely, no different than they did, it used to be that you saw the meter guy. Mm-hmm. Every 5 minutes you saw him show up. You don't see him show up anymore. Mm-hmm. And that's because the technology evolved. And so now they're able to do that. The cost has gone down, and probably you and I probably benefit a bit from the cost going down. So, just my 2 cents.
Okay. Mr. Hall, do you have anything to add?
Yes, sir. The one thing that I mean, I hate to echo everything that everyone else has stated, but I don't think that it's much to ask, since you have someone going there periodically, was it every 2 weeks, for that person to be trained. And I understand that there's an additional 30 minutes to an hour for him to just do a miscellaneous check, but I don't think that that's unreasonable.
Okay, Mr. Van Kirk, do you have anything to add?
Oh, yes. I understand where all the board members are coming from, and I'm not saying I disagree. It's certainly not under our purview tonight to put a condition in to tell SMECO that they have to continuously monitor 85 substations. What we
We're
could
dealing
do,
with this one
and
substation.
this may be something that Mr. Vole would agree to, is since there are some public concern about this one, even though the Board of Appeals has put in to have it monitored before, during, and after. I don't really know what that means after. Does it just mean once it's built and that's it? I mean, I would assume, since there are some neighbors' concerns, Mr. Vole may agree, if we chose to put a condition on there to monitor that quarterly for a year, or something like that, which would require them to go out there 4 additional times. And if it was the same reading, then possibly the neighbors would feel fairly comfortable. But I don't know much about EMS, but I did some reading up on them prior to the meeting. And it's kind of like what Mr. Vole stated, I think, is if you check them at your maximum output, based upon what SMECO's doing there, they couldn't get any worse unless they added power, where they could put out more power. But I do not necessarily think that it should be put on the homeowner or consumer to call for a service where they have a concern. So I'm just going to say that I would like to see, I don't think it's any problem for us to put a condition on this, since it's new and there's nothing in that area, to say we'd like to see it checked 4 times or 8 times over 2 years, or 4 times over 1 year. Just my, and Mr. Vole or SMECO would have to answer to that, but we could surely do something like that. It wouldn't seem to be any major concern, because a consumer could call every week, every day.
Yeah.
Not saying they could go out there that much, but maybe this would help with that question that we've had. But other than that, I feel fairly comfortable that none of the other 85 substations have had a problem, neighbors haven't complained. And I'm sure that when they go out, there's been testing over the years of them 85 stations. And if SMECO knew that, well, we've got, 2,000 kW here, or whatever the number is, and our EMFs are steadily increasing, I'm sure they would have taken some action with shielding or something, and it doesn't seem to be the case. So that's just something that I would like to see, and that's all I have.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Van Kirk. I think we've
Beat that done.
yeah, we've heard, and I think we've gone through enough of it. So with that being said, would anybody like to make a motion to start out? See if we can pass one.
You want to do it?
In the matter of concept site plan number 20-132-00016, Chaptico Substation, having accepted the staff report and having made a finding that the objectives of section 60.6 of the comprehensive zoning ordinance have been met, and noting that the reference project has met all of the requirements for concept approval, I move that the concept site plan be approved with the following conditions. Any road improvement required by the state and county must be concurrent with the issuance of the use and occupancy certificate.
Second.
Okay, I have a motion, I have a second. Is there any discussion on the motion?
Do we not want to put a condition in at all for like any additional monitor?
Yeah.
I
Can
would
we
say, well,
add that?
you would, yeah, if you're making the motion, you go
You're
ahead.
making the
Okay,
motion.
okay.
You pop it on.
I would like to also add the condition that SMECO be responsible for reaching out to the applicants or presenters this evening, Ms. Frederick and Mr. Young, about when they will be there and providing them with documentation of their findings, both before, during, and after the EMF readings.
Discussion on that part of the motion. I think that's already been done by the Board of Appeals for the, and if we wouldn't want to, I think we'd want to do it with all contiguous landowners, anybody that
Okay.
abuts
up to that property.
Yeah. One question I've been meaning to ask about this before, during, and after. Are we just saying once before, once during, once after, or are we defining frequency during this period, during each of those windows?
Well, I think that's coming in the motion that we're just warming into that,
Is the frequency before, during, and after?
no, the frequency, if the board wants it done afterwards, and if so, how frequently and for how long a period of time might be a good way to think that out. You know, do we want to do that for a year? I want to do it,
My opinion, I mean, I don't disagree with Mr. Van Kirk. I think if you want to condition it, saying that they will come out quarterly for a year, and that'll allow, in a situation that those, the people that testified here tonight, and I don't think that's an onerous request, as long as we're understanding that it's on this particular.
yes,
subsection.
we're talking about
Yep.
this
Right, all right.
That's the only thing we're allowed to make
And if they-
decisions on.
And down the line, if it becomes available for others, that's fine.
Well,
But yeah,
this is something new, so the other ones, that's SMECO,
Right,
I'm
this is
sure,
strictly for this,
has
so-
tested. Would you take that as an amendment to your motion?
Absolutely.
Okay.
So,
To do quarterly for a year?
For a year after.
yes, so we would like to put in the condition that the homeowners will be notified quarterly within the year once the project has been completed.
Okay. So we have the motion of the
I'd like to be a little bit more specific.
road improvements, okay? And go ahead and discuss the specificity.
Specificity?
You go ahead, you got it.
No, I just want to make sure you add in there that they will conduct during the year, after the site is completed, they will conduct the analysis of the EMF.
4 times within the
Yes.
year after the completion date,
Specific.
yes.
Okay. Okay, we have a motion. We have a second. We have a second by Mr. Evans. Okay, I'm going to go down the sheet. Mr. Evans?
Yes.
Mr. Fazekas?
Aye.
Ms. Summers?
Aye.
Mr. Van Kirk?
Aye.
Ms. Roebuck?
Aye.
Mr. Hall?
Aye.
Okay, and also aye. Mr. Vole, make sure you take care of your neighbors. That's one of the things we're pretty adamant about here, you know, that you, I know y'all do, nobody can say anything about SMECO's work. We know how you're going to build this, and we know it's going to be done very correctly. But you've heard the concerns of the neighbors. If you could your company could take care of that for a year, that would put their mind at ease and let them know that their properties are safe. That's our motion, that's our conditions for the evening for your approval. Good luck in your endeavors.
Thank you for your time, sir. And I'd like to say that yes, SMECO is very adamant about taking care of the concerns of our customers, and when they reach out, and the additional monitoring quarterly for a year after station is complete will not be an issue for SMECO to meet.
Okay. Thank y'all. Okay, is there any other business this evening?
Thank you, Mr.
Motion to
Chairman.
adjourn.
I have a motion to adjourn.
A second.
All in favor of the motion, say aye.
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 Any opposed? Okay, we're adjourned. Thank you. Thank you.